All right, you chime in anytime you want.
Yeah,
to the back of the podcast, Amelia.
All right, here we go, guys. Here was Goody. He was asked about aging rookies because of the NIL. Obviously, players are staying in college longer now because they're making, in some cases, millions of dollars to stay in college football. Can't blame them one bit. So what you're going to see is this shift of players getting older coming into the league. So I know people are going to freak out that someone's not 21 and a half years old and being drafted and then bitching and moaning the entire season because they're too young and inexperienced. But that's something that's going to continue to evolve and change. Here was Brian Gutekunst on that topic there.
You're in those 5 years removed. The COVID years, some red-shirted, and then NIL. Is there a pocket there that might be there in the 6th and 7th rounds or Saturday night of guys that have played college football for 4 or 5 years?
I hope so. I mean, I think the thing that I think I spoke on it earlier, one of the last times I talked, but it's a unique class. The numbers, particularly on the bottom of the draft and even in free agency, undrafted college free agency, were just really high. I think there's a ton of guys that came back that would have come out earlier that came back and played because of NIL and the transfer portal and really, again, we've got a bunch of guys in this draft that played, 6-7 years in college, right? So we got a lot of older guys, 24, 25-year-olds in this class than we've had in the past. We'll probably see that for a little while going the next few years. So that has made it a little bit unique because of the numbers. And, I'm always on a journey to try to narrow it down because it makes things clearer for me. But at the same time, the guys deserve to be up there. They deserve to be up there. And we've spent a lot of time in that department.
All right, there you go. So that's obviously Goody talking about how the NIL is reshaping the draft every year, right? So I want to get your all's take on it. Is there anything you want to add to that? We're going to get into him talking about rookies contributing right away as well. But, Tim, this is something we talked about, man. As college football, the landscape is changing there. It's going to continue. You're going to get older rookies coming in to the league for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what NIL is, right? Name, image, and likeness. So I think if you're grinding and you're going to school and you're trying to get an education on top of playing football and making money for that university that you're playing for, nothing wrong with getting a little money for yourself. So you don't Chipotle while you're trying to go to practice and stuff. So I'm on.
Go ahead, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, I go back and forth with how I feel about the NIL and what that's done, to the NCAA and total in college football. And at one point, like Tim just said, for the first time in forever, young athletes that really don't get a lot of, they basically have to go to the 3 to 4 year kind of jail sentence before they can go out and make their money. You know what I mean? And then they come back and for the first time, they actually are able to make, like Tim just said, off of their likeness, they actually are able to make some money, and they probably are exploiting it a little bit, moving around and getting the most out of people and squeezing every cent they can. But I always think about, did you guys ever see that episode of South Park where they float the NCAA with Cartman? I'm just saying, student athletes. Oh, that's very nice. That's what we call them. Like that, to me, I'm happy they're getting paid, but it is going to affect the ripple effect is going to happen in the NFL. You never thought in your life that Goody'd be like, oh yeah, 6 or 7 year old, college players. It's like, he's grinding his teeth. Like, no.
Amelia,
I'll tell you one positive out of it is that, at least it eliminates this under the table backdoor kind of stuff that we saw in the past, right? At least it's all out in the open now. Everybody knows what's going on. So I think that's one positive we can get from it.
Chuck's saying kids doing 6 years in college and got 8 actual credits. Yeah, we're drafting. We're basically drafting Van Wilder and Tommy Boy now.
Yeah,
there you go. Amelia, I know you're excited about it because that means college football players got their real names on the college football video. Right?
That's big. That's huge. I mean, being able to go through the cards and they're just telling me how good a player is just by their overall, it's money. But no, I do think it's kind of cool. Obviously, they're still going through it. I feel like kind of like a COVID thing too. We're finally getting past that. Now we can wrap, like you said, wrap his arms around how that's really going to work. I think that it kind of adds to the fact that they get to pick and choose, what they're doing on combine and drills like that. So I think it's kind of just ever changing, and you kind of got to work with it as it comes.
Definitely. All right, moving on to the next comment here, Tim, if you'll give me another screen grab, sir. We got Goody on whether rookies
Thug life.
whether rookies can contribute right away or not, and do they expect rookies to contribute right away? Here was Goody's answer.
You need your first round pick to contribute right away.
No, I mean, I think you'd love to, but I mean, I think a lot of you guys have been around here. It's great when they do, but that's not always the case. And this is the transition to the National Football League is tough. It's not always easy. A lot of times it's really determined by opportunity. You know what I mean? I mean, if you take a guy in a particular area that he's just going to have a lot more opportunity than somebody else, and we try to stay away from that drafting for need. We try to just, take the best player available if that's possible. But most of the time, a guy's impact in his rookie year comes down to the opportunities that he had more than anything.
Right. And listen, this is something we've talked about pretty extensively, right? Like we all get caught up in, you got to take a number one receiver. Guys, number one receivers aren't falling off trees, right? Same thing with like an edge defender. When you're picking on the back half of the first round, it's not like you're picking players that are just a slam dunk. They're going to step right in and be a starter. You would like for that to happen. And in last year's case, you had Edgerrin Cooper, second round pick. He should have been starting from the get-go if he hadn't been hurt coming out of camp. Like that dude, it just clicked. And that's what Goody's saying you'd like for him to, but your roster is built in a way that you don't have to have those guys contribute right away. I mean, think about the Jets who were picking high all those years in a row. They landed some damn good football players, right? But even the fact that they're putting people like Sauce Gardner and these high-end draft picks out on the field immediately, it's not like they're just every one of these players are dominating even in the top 10, right? You'll typically get 2 to 3 busts in the top 10 just about every year, right? So I think it's important that you curb the enthusiasm on these rookies, and then if stuff clicks, then that's absolutely awesome. So I don't know, Tim, you got anything to add to that, man? And the fact that, like we said, or actually we'll start with you this time, Jacob. With what Goody said there, I love that approach. Like, look, the chances that you get a receiver that's going to be better than Romeo Doubs, Romeo Doubs, Jaden Reed, they're just going to step in there, all of a sudden be the number one receiver. It's highly unlikely unless you're picking in the top 10. In that case, maybe Ted McMillan, right?
Yep. Yeah. And that's what we've dealt with as Packer fans for basically my 7 years plus on this spinning earth, is that we want us to do so much with so little in the first round. And we expect so much without having the understanding that, we're usually picking way past 20, right? Wouldn't you argue that we probably are always 25 plus most years? I mean, you just don't get absolute blue chip gems that fall in your lap unless you're really good at drafting. And I'd argue that Goody, when they ask, with his record of drafting, do you think that when they ask him the question of, do you think that the first round or the first rounder that you draft needs to have immediate impact? He's going to say, absolutely. And every single one that I drafted sucks. And, they're never going to progress and all this kind of stuff. No, that's not what he's going to say, obviously. So he's going to have to take an approach where, especially when you're drafting for guys with traits like he has typically sometimes done, when you look at guys like Quay and even Devontae and LVN and Stokes, we saw potential that labeled them a first round pick because of the traits and the potential they had. Now, we have had the argument back and forth many, many times about whether or not that approach has been successful or not. I'd argue probably not as successful as we'd like in the first round, but as we just get out of the first, it's very successful. So yeah. It is what it is, man. And sometimes you're never going to hit 100% on the draft. It's just never going to happen. You're lucky if you hit 10%. And I think Goody consistently will hit anywhere from 20 to 50, and we should be happy about that.
Right. And we typically make those teams that they'll quote unquote luck up and hit on a bunch, like Seattle back in the day that built the basically the foundation of those Super Bowl teams there in Seattle, right? The Super Bowl contending teams year in and year out. That's not normal. It's just like Philly. It's not normal that Philly has hit on so many draft picks here of lately, especially getting a little later in the draft, still in the first half, I believe, when they got Jalen Carter. But obviously it gets way more difficult the further you get down in the rounds, for sure. What do you think, Tim? You got anything to add to that, man?
My bad. I'm looking at my my Twitter feed right now, and I'm talking to McCall Hardman Jr. on Twitter right now. We're gonna go bowling after the draft. He just hit me up, man. So I gotta I gotta handle business real quick, but I will say this. One thing about a Goody that I've noticed, if he's got his heart set on somebody, he's going to do whatever it takes to get him, and trade up, trade down, stick and pick, whatever it is. And at the end of the day, there is no doubt in my mind that whatever he's going to do in this first round is going to surprise a lot of us. That's all I'm going to say. It wouldn't put it, I wouldn't put it past him to, move back or stand pat. But, most fans will probably look at whatever he does as a reach if they're, not in love with the draft pick. We saw that last year with Jordan Morgan. Everybody was upset. And I think it was a good pick. But, we'll see what happens.
Right. It could end up being a bad pick, right, Emilio? But as it sits right now, I don't know how people can just look at that and go, okay, he tried to fight through a shoulder injury he sustained very, very early in the training process, and all of a sudden he's a bust. It's amazing.
I mean, you got to give him some time. They're never perfect coming out of college. You're always Aaron Rodgers was always working on something in year 15, right? So it's like you always are trying to get better. I think that you got to give him a chance. And I like Tim and Jacob were saying. I mean, obviously Goody's been cooking, and he learned from Ted, and he said even Ted put him in his place a couple times. So that's